Va subiendo la corriente con chinchorro y atarraya, la canoa de bareque para llegar a la playa. Va subiendo la corriente con chinchorro y atarraya, la canoa de bareque para llegar a la playa. Habla con la luna, habla con la playa, no tiene fortuna, solo su atarraya. El pecador habla con la luna, habla con la playa, no tiene fortuna, solo su atarraya. El pecador habla con la luna, habla con la playa, no tiene fortuna, solo su atarraya.
Do you want to say some words?
Before this? Let's see.
The first time I dove was in the port of Veracruz. And to be honest, I was skeptical about what I would find in such a busy harbor. But to my surprise, the water was full of life. I later found out this place was in fact a marine protected area, and a quite successful one. Unfortunately, not all protected areas in Mexico can claim to be a success, so I wondered what I could do to turn things around. An amazing thing about the Rolex scholarship is the exposure to a variety of experiences, especially when it comes to diving. So one of my first goals for the year was to see how diving could become a tool for conservation. But even though I spent an entire childhood in and out of the water, I've got to admit that I was barely a diver myself, so I had a great challenge ahead of me. I had an urge to get closer to all sorts of aquatic environments and feel like I could perform beneath the surface. Otherwise, how could I protect something I didn't know? The training I underwent was extensive and took numerous forms. Some of it was focused on doing simple things more precisely, while other bits were targeted towards operating in different environments or managing different types of equipment. All in all, I learned how to hold my breath, take pictures, lay a transect line, and even the ins and outs of basic hyperbaric chamber operations. And once I felt a bit more comfortable underwater, I started to get exposure to different conservation projects in science and research. I learned how to count fish, how to mend coral reefs, and help make artificial habitats. I also got the hang of mapping structures to make 3D models out of them. I even had a shot at applying these skills in an actual expedition, alongside one of the best team of cave divers out there. We were preparing to map a cave using some of the most innovative technology, in order to have a digital record of the site which would be useful for research and conservation purposes. At this point, it felt as if all the training I did in the past months and the skills I gained were finally going to pay off in something that I could only dream to be a part of. But the ocean had a different set of plans, and our diving operations got a little more complicated, so we had to abort the mission.
What was it like?
Like a washing machine full of white foam.
Were you able to see anything?
No.
Excellent.
Not a thing.
How far in did you go?
In the cavern zone. When one of the team members can't even find the cave when he's dropped in the mouth, it's probably pretty bad.
It's a bad sign.
It's a bad sign.
Nonetheless, the work paid off, and the beginnings of a map became evident. Despite these complications, it was so rewarding to see everyone adapt to unforeseen conditions, and their input becoming positive outcomes. I got to experience firsthand how these cave divers execute an expedition. I think after all of this, I started to feel useful underwater. But somewhere down the line, I realized that the things that happen above the water were just as important. The pressure on aquatic resources from land is one of the many challenges of conservation. I was once told by an economist that our seafood supply does not meet its demand, so the system is out of balance. But fish stocks are naturally productive systems, so according to his model, the problem is easy to solve. When we reach a point of eating too much fish, the answer is to close the fishery down and let it recover. But if it was that simple, then why was supply still not meeting demand? I paid a visit to what some would consider the higher leagues of conservation, those that devote themselves to having large percentages of the marine environment protected by the next couple of years. One thing that they all had in common was that they operated on a political level. Knowing so little about policy, I had the chance to go back to school and take an ocean governance course under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, the constitution that gives rights to the peaceful use of the ocean's resources. A big focus of this course was implementing ethics into the spatial planning of marine protected areas. As a scientist, I had always thought of a protected area as pristine, where people are kept out to keep places in their natural state. But William Cronin once said that there's a problem with wilderness. Humans have been modifying their environment for years, and, ironically, keeping places free from human activity goes against our own nature. From the Indian tribes of the Pacific Northwest, I learned about the ancient technique of clam gardening. For years, they had been building terrace-like structures to extend the seeding banks of their clams, but the changing planet has faded the traditional knowledge of their ancestors and compromised the ability for shellfish to survive on their own. There's nothing more inspiring than watching these communities work together to regain these practices to mitigate the effects of climate change, in an effort to preserve both their natural and cultural heritage. Community-based management can be a powerful tool for the benefit of conservation. The island of Rapa Nui was just recently declared a marine protected area. And allowing tourists to access their parks, they can gather funds to sustain campaigns for better protection. Much needed when the remoteness of the island demands a particular attention to pollution problems. By law, no industrial resource extraction is allowed unless approved by the indigenous people, and the governance table that administers its natural resources is composed entirely of community stakeholders. The empowerment of the community is a merit worthy of global recognition. Together they work to educate the public on their natural environment and its rightful usage. The truth is that human involvement both below and above the surface is part of the success to conservation. And diving is a tool in between. Seeing all of my experiences come together was a valuable lesson. And learning directly from the people dedicated to protecting the underwater world has left me with a desire to join the momentum. To face upfront the challenges we have ahead, preserve our rights, safeguard our food, celebrate our heritage and culture, and protect the underwater jewels that keep us coming back. This year was a bit of a drift dive for me, where the current of one experience led me to another. Diving is such an incredible tool that facilitates all sorts of work underwater, but the road to successful conservation needs work both above and below the surface. Now I am confident that I can go home and partake in projects underwater, and I will continue becoming the best I can to foster the formation of future conservationists, trying to enrich a community where water is more accessible to all and advocates for the rights to a finite ocean.
Mi amor no tiene esperanza, aunque te esperará. Mi corazón se alanza, un fantasma corporeal. Mi amor no tiene venganza, aunque te matará. Este viejo no se cansa, siempre te persigará. Así que fe, amor, no necesita esperanza. Ven, amor, aquí. Feo amor no grita en mi lancha alrededor de ti. Feo amor, mosquito tan dandy, fue un amor así. Feo amor no quita esperanza, ven amor aquí. Ven amor. Mi amor, no te hablo paja, aunque no es la verdad. Mi abogado trabaja para que tú puedas descansar. Así que fe, amor, no necesita esperanza. Ve